the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Dr. Pike?
Here.
Mr. Frond?
Here.
Mrs. Geyer?
Here.
Mr. Lizza?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mr. Shipley?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Tyson Martin? Brighton Montgomery?
Here.
Do we have any citizens' comments?
Andy.
I do not at this time.
We are going to have an audit presentation from Mr. Mark Turnley.
Thank you, board members, for having me here this evening. In front of you, I've put three documents. The top document in that clip package is the document that I'm going to be referring to for the most part of my presentation. It's about a 5 or 6 page synopsis. It's the one that halfway down the first page says General Fund Balance Analysis. But as I do for the board each year, is I like to prepare the synopsis and extract from the actual audit report itself, which is that thick document on the bottom of the package. Extract the financial highlights for the year under audit and provide some comparative history for the board so that they can kind of see where they've been over a 5-year period in a number of areas. So just a couple of comments about that thicker audit report before I get into this document that I talked about initially. With regard to that thick document, probably the most important pages from our perspective is the independent auditor's opinion in the very front of that report on Roman numeral pages 1 through 3. And what we've issued for Southmoreland this year is what we've issued in the past is what's known as an unmodified opinion. And basically an unmodified opinion means that the information contained in the body of that audit report is presented in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, and there are no departures from those rules. So in layman's terms, that's a good thing. That's the type of opinion you want to send to any bond underwriter, and especially to the Department of Education, who reviews your report thoroughly on an annual basis. Subsequent to that is a section that I always call the attention of my board members to, is the section called the Management Discussion and Analysis. And like what I'm going to do for you this evening here in a minute, is that management discussion analysis runs on Roman numeral pages 4 through 13. And the purpose of that is to allow a reader of your audit report, not necessarily having to go through all of the report, is to get a synopsis, if you will, a financial view of how the district did, not only for the year under audit, which in this particular case is the 2021 fiscal year, but also provide comparative information 1920 and 2021, along with some reasons for increases and decreases and other information, just again extracted from the thick part of the audit report to make it easy for the reader to get a quick read on the financial results of the district for the year. So again, I know board members, I used to be a board member myself, are inundated with paperwork, so we'll appreciate the brevity of that section of the audit report to help you see how the district did for the year. With regard to this document, the first document I talked about, the one on the first page, has General Fund Balance Analysis. On that first page, I give you a 5-year history of the total general fund balance. And that total word is important here because I'm going to talk about the component parts of that fund balance in a minute. But here is the total general fund balance over a 5-year period. And if you look at the bottom, obviously, for the 2021 year that we just finished auditing, you're going to see that you ended the year with $3,849,000, which is about an 18.2% increase from the prior fiscal year. On the top of page 2, I pull out one of the more important components of that overall fund balance. It's the part that is known as unassigned. And unassigned, just by the very word, means that it's not restricted for any particular purpose and can be used for general operating purposes. So this is a portion of the overall fund balance, and once again, you see a 5-year history of this. Now, at the end of June of 21, the last line, you can see that that figure was $2,980,943. The reason this number is so important is because of how the Department of Education looks at this number in comparison to your budget. And in that first paragraph on page 2, I do the math. As of June 30th, 2021, that unassigned amount was approximately 9% of your budget that you're in the current year. Now, your own board policy mandates that you stay in the range of 5 to 8%. It's not that it's a bad thing that you're at 9%, because you're at the high side of your internal policy. But the 9% is looked at the state. Act 48 of 2003 said that in order for a school district to raise millage beyond the annual index increase that you receive annually, if you ever had to do that, you have to pass a budget whereby this unassigned dollar amount is at or below, in your case, 8% of your budget. So you can see you're slightly over at 9%. But if you're not intending to raise millage beyond the index increase, it's not an issue. But again, it's something that you may want to take a look at for the upcoming fiscal year in terms of how you want to manage your fund balance. Now, the difference between this unassigned fund balance that I talk about on page 2 and the total fund balance on page 1 are monies that the board has assigned for particular purposes. And at the very bottom of page 2, I bullet point the 3 items that make up the monies that are reserved by the board that make up the remainder of fund balance. That remaining portion is $868,270. So you see you've restricted for capital improvements, cyber charter school tuition increases, and tax appeal refunds. Now, at any point during the fiscal year, the board can decide, hey, we want to stay at 8% and don't want our unassigned to be above that threshold, so that you're in compliance with the state rules with regard to Act 48. All it takes is for the board to assign additional monies, whether it is in any of these 3 categories, for retirement rate increases, for health care increases, whatever the board prefers, to get you down to that 8% level. So once again, that's within your power to do that. On page 3, I give the board, again for the general fund only, a 5-year history of your revenues and your expenditures. And it's pretty much self-explanatory. When you look at revenues, the most recent fiscal year at the bottom was an increase of $1,239,000 over last fiscal year, which is about 4%. And then as you scale down to your expenditures, of course, the last line, an increase almost the same as the increase in revenues, $1,256,000, which is an increase of about 4%. Once again, just to give the board history over the last 5 years, and in particular where you were at for the 2021 fiscal year under audit. After that, share with the board, how did we do budget versus actual? As you know, you're required at the beginning of the year to submit a budget to PDE, and now we take a look at the results of that budget versus actual comparison for the year under audit 2021. So the first bullet point on the bottom of page 3 talks about revenues. Actual revenues exceeded budget by $571,000. So of course, that's the side of the equation you want to be on. In that thick audit report, when you get a chance, there's a page that's dedicated to revenues, budget versus actual, page 49, when you get a chance. It provides a more detailed look at the various line items of budget and actual revenues. And you can see the items that were over and under budget. One of the main items that was over budget was delinquent real estate taxes for the year, and that was the main item that caused this over budget situation. On the top of page 4, 2 other items related to budget versus actual. The first bullet point deals with expenditures now. Budgeted expenditures exceeded actual by $852,000. So again, that's the side of the ledger that you want to be on, where your budget exceeds your actual. You spent within your constraints that you established when you did the budget. So just like the revenues, there's a schedule in the back of the audit report, Schedule 2 on pages 50 through 53, that provides greater detail, budget versus actual, for the board to review, so you can see in all the functional areas how you did. For the most part, all functional areas of expenditures were under budget. The only one that stood out that was over budget, and as I mentioned, in total, you were under budget by $852,000, which again is a good thing, as I like to say. But there was one area, regular program instruction, where you were over budget to the tune of about $575,000. So that's the only one particular item I wanted to point out to the board. And when you look at those schedules in the back, or if you look at page 7 in that thick audit report, there's a summary of budget versus actual. You'll see these numbers that I'm talking about this evening. At the bottom of page 4, every governmental entity that complies with generally accepted accounting principles is required to keep 2 sets of financial statements in their audit report. The short-term view, which is what we've been talking about up until now. How did we do for the 2021 fiscal year? And how did we do budget versus actual for that year? But you're also required to prepare and show in your audit report what I like to call a corporate balance sheet, which is a long-term view of the overall net position, fund balance, if you will, for the school district. And that's where we include the long-term debt obligations of the school district and also the long-term assets, your buildings, your infrastructure, your equipment, and see how that plays out after we add those factors in. So on the first line on that table at the bottom of page 4, you'll see a net position, and for 6/30/21, you'll see a figure of a negative $27 million. Those of you that have been on the board for a while, you will recall me talking about why I just mentioned to you that you almost had $4 million in general fund balance, and now, Mark, you're telling us that this corporate-wide balance sheet is showing a deficit net position of $27 million. The main reason for that, not only for Southmoreland, but for all of my school districts, is because school districts are required to show on their balance sheet your proportionate share of the pension liability at PSBA. Each school, it's depending on the number of participants. So as of 6/30/21, Southmoreland's liability is almost $43 million. I had a presentation the other night with a school larger than Southmoreland, and they were up in the $145 million range. So it varies depending on the size of the school. The good thing is that you don't have to write a check to PSBA tomorrow morning for $47 million. It's more of an accounting issue that you have to put on your balance sheet. But you can see when you add a number like that as a liability onto a balance sheet, you can see why on a short-term view we were talking about having $4 million of a surplus, and now when we look at it from a corporate perspective, it drives down to a negative position. So if you're looking at the thick audit report or any of the detail and you see that negative position, don't be alarmed. It's more of an accounting issue to deal with regard to your liability due to PSBA over a period of time. A much smaller fund here at the district, but nevertheless an important fund, is your food service fund. Toward the bottom of that table, in the middle to the bottom, under food service operations, the second line down, you'll see change in net position, a fancy way of saying profit or loss for the year. If you look at this year, you'll see that the profit was $78,000 versus a loss last year of $118,633. And the reason for that turnaround is reflected in the next 3 lines. And, you know, if you do the math, you'll see what I'm talking about. You see that food operating revenues went down significantly, and federal and state subsidy revenue was up a little bit. But those declines in overall revenues were more than offset by the decrease in the operating expenses. That line you see there where it decreased $371,000, and that's where the savings were for the 2021 fiscal year. So you can see why last year we were at a $118,000 loss, and this year we're back in the black at $78,000 in terms of profit or loss for the year. So again, I wanted to bring that to your attention. On the top of page 5, it's just basically what I've just been telling you about your long-term obligation. Again, just breaking it down, there are really 2 on that corporate balance sheet. There's one for Peasers, and I show you the exact dollar amount, $42,936,000. And there's another long-term obligation. The school board enters into the collective bargaining agreements, and you contract to pay retirees a certain amount of health care benefits and other types of benefits. And that's actuarially calculated, not by me, but an outside firm. And that number is $4.2 million. So those are some significant liabilities that are on that corporate balance sheet that we talk about each year. And the last two pages, or at the bottom of page 5 and 6, are some recommendations that I have. These are consistent, at least the first two are with last year with regard to segregation of duties, especially at the real estate tax collectors level. I mean, they're really autonomous from you, elected independently, and control their offices. And a lot of time it's a one-person operation. And you understand they bill, they collect, they do the banking and all those sort of things. So there's really not like a company where you have 3 people in accounts payable and another so many people in the accounting department. You just really have 1, at most 2 in the busy season. So I always remind of the risk, tell the board the risk associated with the collections by your tax collectors, and to be vigilant in monitoring your collections during the year. I've had some of my schools start to do a separate audit, a separate independent audit of their tax collectors on kind of a cyclical basis, just depending on if the business office says, I'm not sure I'm happy with the collections for this particular year. Maybe we need to take a closer look. When we do our audit, it's basically a regular audit. We do an overview of the tax collectors, but it's not like doing an in-depth separate audit that some school districts will have of their tax collectors. And again, the flavor of the day now is on a cyclical basis. Instead of doing all of them, maybe pick 1 or 2 one year, 1 or 2 in the next year. Things, just something for the board to consider. And it's not that I saw anything that alerted me to, but once again, it's a risk issue that I bring to your attention. On the top of page 6, the last part of this presentation, food service fund operations. I've talked to the board this in the past. Not kept on the same computer system as all your other business office operations, and I know Pam is fully aware of that and working toward changing that going forward. That's been a situation here at Southmoreland for a number of years, and hopefully we can get everything into CSIU going forward. And then federal financial reporting, there were some issues with the prior business administration with regard to not filing certain federal financial reports on a timely method. And once again, I've talked with Pam, and she's on top of that, and hope to rectify that going forward. So just some comments that we noted in addition to the numbers themselves that we're bringing to the board's attention. And then the last comment from me anyway is, in addition to the financial part of the audit that I have to do on an annual basis, we also have to do a compliance audit because of the amount of federal monies that you receive and expend on an annual basis. And in the back of the thick audit report are the results of our compliance testing with the program or programs that we've chosen. This year we chose the summer food program and the National School Lunch Program. And there are pages in there which will tell the reader of the financial statements that we found no material non-compliance with regard to the operations of that program for the 2021 year. There may be small things that, state auditors may look at because that's the nature of what they do. But from a material standpoint, overall, we didn't find any issues with the operation of that particular program. So I think, everyone, those are the highlights that I extracted from the report and brought in prior year reports for the sake of so that you can see a history here at Southmoreland. And if you have any questions at this particular time that I can answer, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Turnley?
It says in here about you providing like an opinion on compliance, and you don't do that. You don't express that kind of an opinion. Break that down for me. So you just do the audit, the monies, you look over everything, make sure there's not like this humongous offset, basically.
Right. It's, you may have heard the term forensic audit. And forensic audits get into the detail, nuts and bolts of almost every transaction. what we do when we're doing our audit, we make sure one of the more important items we do is, this, I won't bore you with the accounting detail, but we try to make sure that every item on your balance sheet, that short term, to arrive at that fund balance, is supported by the documentation on hand at the school district, and we confirm with third parties a lot of that information. So usually if your balance sheet, once again, not to get into the nuts and bolts of that, if your balance sheet is okay, everything else falls in line on the revenues and expenditures. And in a normal audit, which is what this is, a regular, or at least the first part of it, the first half is a regular audit. That's what any auditor is going to do to assure you that you can count on that fund balance level. And really, to know when you're doing an audit report, sometimes folks who are not familiar with what an audit means is we're not required by our profession to find fraud. Certain people will say, well, Mark, you didn't see that. I'm just talking in generalities. There's things going on here. That's not what the purpose of a regular audit is. It's to assure the readers of the financial statements that the numbers in here you can rely on in terms of what your financial position is at any point in time. And then the second half of that equation is the compliance part, but only for the particular programs that we select on a risk basis, which this year was the summer food service program and the National School Lunch Program. So once again, we do sample testing. We meet with Gail in the cafeteria office and go over all of her records and make sure that that's all looks good. And then we express our opinion that from our perspective, in layman's terms, it appears to be in compliance with their rules and regulations. Hopefully I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Mark,
Yes.
could you go over again for me that issue where you say the district's unassigned fund balance exceeds Act 48 threshold by $274,000? What are the ramifications of that in relationship to tax increases?
The only ramification is you must, and I'll restate this and stop me if I'm being redundant and still further confusing it. You must, if you intend to raise millage, if this district were in a financial position where they felt they needed to raise millage, which would be hard to do anyway, above the annual index percentage increase that they give you already, if you said, boy, we need to raise millage above and beyond that, then in order to do that, you must, when you do your budget on an annual basis, have an unassigned balance, unassigned portion of your overall general fund balance has to be only no more than 8% of your budget. And if you're over that, like you are, at least now, 9%, you can still raise your millage within the annual threshold that they give you already. Doesn't stop you from doing that. You just can't go any further. So a lot of some districts have no plan. They may have a healthier fund balance than you. They have no plan to raise their millage beyond that threshold. So they're really not worried about that unassigned portion being over that index level. But a lot of my schools now, more often than not, they set monies aside, either assign or commit them, which is what we talked about on the bottom of page 2, so that unassigned never exceeds that threshold. And, when the state implements a percentage threshold, somewhere I have to believe that there's a thought process behind that at the state level that they're going to hold school districts to that eventually for some reason or another. And whether it's subsidies that could be affected down the road, I don't know. But there had to be a plan in place with regard to that 8%. Now, originally it was said to be for the sake of both not only the school district, but for taxpayers on both sides, the public and the school board, so that you don't have too much taxpayer money on hand that's not set aside for a particular purpose. That was one of the original reasons.
One of the things Southmoreland has done over the years is given out, I think, $7 or $8 million to retiring teachers. And in the past, I have recommended that some of that money be assigned because we absolutely owe it by contract. And of course, I was severely criticized for that. But if you look at that assigned fund balance, isn't that an appropriate place to put money that we absolutely owe to
Yes.
those people?
Yes.
The next 5 years or something like that,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We should do-
Along with that, I talked about PSERs and healthcare. Those retirement incentives are another perfect example of where you could, put money there. And then you'd be immediately under that 8% threshold with no problem.
We already know how much we owe those people, so that could be assigned, because
Yes.
it's never going to go away. It's
Yeah.
never going to change. It's never going to change.
That liability, those retirement incentives, by the way, just
Money aside for
differentiate.
Maybe capital might be a...
Those liabilities are shown on that corporate balance sheet that I was talking about. We do show them there because that's required by our standard. But they're not shown on that short-term basis with that general fund balance. So your suggestion as that as a possibility is correct. It could be shown as an assigned portion of your fund balance.
Thank you.
Question?
Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can't go away. It's assigned. It's assigned.
I just wanted to mention, because I forgot to mention earlier, that we were in executive session for some personnel matters and legal matters prior to coming out to the meeting. Okay, I believe we have 2 walk-on items this evening. The first item, I'm going to need a motion to walk on posting the high school yearbook sponsor at a supplemental salary of $3,077. The reason why that is not on the agenda this evening is that it's on the agenda as co-sponsors, and we just wanted to make sure that the posting is for the full supplemental salary of $3,077, and that is not to be prorated. So I need a motion
So move.
and a second
Second.
to add this to the agenda. Okay.
But
So-
you want to give the public the opportunity to comment, brief recess before we have the vote to add it to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I do the other item as well?
Yes, you can
Okay.
announce the second item as well, and then take a short recess, and then...
Do you want to go ahead and do that one, Mr.
Masha?
Masha, because you're familiar with that one, I'm not.
Is it in replace? Can I just make sure it's in replace of
Yes.
what's
we'll be-
already on here?
We'll be tabling that, correct?
But, I mean, that's what I'm wondering. Like, do we need to table that necessarily?
Yes, we
or
do,
just
because
need
this
to
is to hire someone and this is to post it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Masha. This is the second item that needs to be walked on.
We have to submit our E-rate form before March 22nd. If we do not submit it before March 22nd, we will not receive the discount of 80% reimbursable through E-rate. So I would really like to get this walked on. And
What exactly is going to be walked on? Like, what would the motion be?
We can discuss the exact wording in recess, but you would like to enter it, you would like to accept this bid and enter into a contract. Is that correct, Mr. Masha?
Sir, Armstrong has put in a bid. Mr. Pushkar is recommending that is the lowest bid, that we follow Armstrong's bid. So I would have to get the wording. You'd have to tell me what the wording of the...
Sure, absolutely. And what precisely is Armstrong going to be providing to the district? You mentioned e-services, but could you just
The
briefly
dark
summarize that?
Fiber internet for $690 per month, 500 NRC installation. Armstrong's also looking at the dark fiber between buildings, the high school and SPC, and the dark fiber between buildings, high school and SES.
And just to clarify why this needs to be added to the agenda tonight, this was the lowest bid, and the only way to lock in this specific rate is to have a vote tonight.
Yes.
So what happens to this rate if the board were to fail to vote
We will
tonight?
not get the discount of 80%.
Okay.
When did Mr. Pushkar receive this information? Like, I can't imagine he just got it on March 17th, and we need to vote on this by March 22nd.
March 8th.
So we had it for last week, and we had it in time for it to be on this agenda. And here we are. Okay, so I need a motion to walk that item on.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, and I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess for anybody that wants to call in on this item. They would call in at 724-640-2609. That would be for the walk-on of the yearbook sponsor and also for the E-rates. Again, it's 724-640-2609. I need a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to go back into session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did we have any call-ins? Okay, so I need to have a motion, right? I can read that 100 times and I'm still not going to get it. So I have a motion, right? It's already on the table to walk this on. So I need to vote
Yes, you
to
need a
walk it
voice
on.
vote at this point.
Holy smokes. So I need a voice vote to walk on posting the high school yearbook sponsor at a supplemental salary of $3,077. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And then do we vote on the actual thing right now?
Yes, well,
Okay.
no, you don't need to vote on it right now, but the item's been added to the agenda.
Okay.
You can address it at any point during the new agenda portion of the meeting.
Okay. All right. And I have a motion also on the table to add the E-rates to the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, minutes, February 10th, 2022.
So move.
Board is asked to approve the minutes of the February 10th, 2022 voting discussion meeting.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? February 17th, 2022 minutes.
Board is asked to approve the minutes of the
Yes.
February 17th, 2022 voting meeting.
I need a motion.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Scott.com.
Monthly board treasurer's report.
Board is asked to approve the treasurer's report for the month of January.
I need a motion.
Moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Friend?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-all.
General Fund Board Summary Report.
Board is asked to approve the board summary report for January.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Friend?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes. Accounting and food service check summary listing.
Board is asked to approve the fund accounting and food service check summary listing for February.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Friend?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-all.
Budget transfers.
Board is asked to approve the attached budgetary transfers.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I got a question. Does this include the cell phones?
So I don't think there's any cell phone money on here, correct? That was taken care of the last time.
That was taken care of the last time, and from that time, there has been 11 or 12 phones that have been turned in, and their service has been shut off.
We did that, and we were asked for that before, and I won't support her because those cell phones, I don't believe in it, and we were never told, I was never told, at least I wasn't near, neither near, that those phones were taken care of.
It came out through email.
Oh, okay.
They were, I think I mentioned it at last week's meeting too, that we shut 11 of those off. And there's still more to come.
Right, and since that time, we shut off an additional one, and then there's one more that I know that's definitely coming. Yes.
So these are for other items. This is moving it looks like from life skills line item, or from sub-aid, right, for autistic support, move to life skills, and also again, moved sub-aid, autistic support to sub-aids for life skills. So no cell phones there.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Lizzo.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Grund.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Cyber charter expense analysis?
Once again, that was on there for informational, and Mrs. Mondock, I don't know if you have anything to expand.
As you can see, thankfully, this year, the first column is what we spent through January last year versus the third column, which is what we've spent this year. As you can see, it's $208,000 lower, which is wonderful news for us. But I just, want to keep an eye on it because as you can see, the percent to budget used, some of them are quite high.
Are the different account codes for different cyber charter schools?
No,
What are they?
the first one is for the elementary portion, that with the 10 in it, the 10, 11, 10, 5, 62, 0, 0, 0, 10, and then zeros. That's for the elementary portion. The other is with the 30 is for secondary. And then the 1231 and 1241 items, they are for special ed needs.
Is this through current right now, or is this just through this past January?
It's through January of 2022.
Is there any other discussion on that? Okay,
Can I say something, Michelle, on this
Yes.
cyber school? I went to a seminar presented by the American Association of University Women, and it was titled Follow the Money to Our Schools. There was a survey done, and the top budget pressure among schools, superintendents and so forth, was unbalanced cyber school costs. And I want to just give you a couple statistics on that so that, I think you'll find it helpful, and there's a solution to it that they have. Right now, cyber charter schools, they're ranging for regular ed from $8,900 to $23,700. For special ed, it's $18,000 up to $57,000. Okay. Now, this is the situation. I did not realize this. Cyber schools don't have to have a budget like we do. They can just bill you for whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want. So the solution that is now being proposed to the legislature is they want a fixed amount of $9,000. They want a fixed tuition rate at $9,800 per student in an attempt to level the playing field. That's the legislative attempt to try to
Rectify the
it's
situation.
been 25 years this has been going on, but they are not accountable like we are.
Oh, no,
They
they're
can do
not.
whatever they want. All they have to do is say, I think this is what you owe me, and they get it. But there's a lot of other information I'd like to share with you at the end that was very important to us. And there is an appeal at the legislative level to stop this, Pam, to get it to 9,800, no matter who you are.
I hope that happens.
Okay, superintendent information?
Okay, I have several things here. Mrs. O'Rear, you asked a question last meeting about the mental health services. Okay, and at our last superintendent meeting, there is going to be a mental health summit on June 9th through the IU, where they are going to bring in mental health services that are currently being offered by all schools in the county. And they are going to do presentations to the superintendents with the idea then that as collectively as a group, we will brainstorm what the needs are for our county, and then the IU and several superintendents are going to be meeting with the county commissioners to share that need. So since you had asked a question last week, I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I also want to wish Henry Miller the best of luck tomorrow and Saturday. Henry will be swimming in the PIAA State Swim Championships. Friday, the preliminaries begin 7:45. Wow, that's real early, and the finals will be at 4:15. And Saturday, the preliminaries are at 7:45, and the finals will be at 4:15. So I wish Henry the best of luck in his endeavors. Also, Dr. Fike several meetings ago had brought up some concerns about the grading update practices. So I have an update. Administration met with a group of high school students on 3/3/22 to discuss our shared need for improving our practices in grading. We opened by asking students about their concerns, and a few themes emerged. The first issue was that students felt the choice was important to them as it related to measuring their knowledge. Interestingly, our highest achieving students noted that it was difficult for some of their peers to do well when often their grades depended on tests and papers. So that was a real eye-opener. The group also pointed out that because of class rank, they chose classes that they don't necessarily want but felt they needed in order to stay in the race for highest honors. We offer 12 AP courses which are weighted, and so our highest performing students chose them to increase their GPAs, but they did admit that while they loved the choices, it forced them to choose between interest and what provided the higher QPA. Our students were asked about what they felt was missing from the grading, and they said choice and voice most especially. They also indicated that while nearly every teacher offered remediation that included different measures to show understanding, in some instances, students would retake the same test until they scored a number which they would feel comfortable. The system this was missing for them from administration down. Point totals vary, but there were examples of students earning thousands of points in quarters for some courses, while others did not offer nearly that amount. The district's plan to address these issues and other academic needs can be identified in the two core pillars of high-quality learning for all: improving practices and collaboration. Solutions to these systems problems begin with collaboration between all stakeholders to develop a philosophy of grading for the 2022-2023 school year, and the administration would like to work with the academic committee to start making that collaboration happen. Additionally, training for varying modes of measurements for students to demonstrate proficiency will be part of our district's continuing effort to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum for students, as well as authentic and valid data that demonstrates student learning. In these ways, we will begin the right work of showing students learning in accurate ways and provide evidence of growth through pre and post assessments. So we're going to be giving students, hopefully, a wider variety of means of demonstrating competence other than just paper and pencil means that we're currently doing. And Bryson, I know that you were a part of that, and I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can please decline the offer, but I don't know if you have anything.
I mean, I agree with it. Like you said, like I took AP Euro this year just because of my GPA, just to boost it, and that was put me out for other stuff I wanted to do. So,
but I really wanted to thank you and all the students. That meeting was very productive. I think you guys really showed some maturity and insight and expressed and articulated some of the problems that we as a district were experiencing. And I really appreciated from the district's point of view, you meeting with us. And we have plans, just so that everyone understands, we do have plans on meeting again and exploring and working with students and trying to find a solution to our situation here.
Did any of the students that were in that meeting, were any of them, or do any of them have an IEP?
In thinking of the students there, I'm not certain, Mrs. O'Rear, I would not be 100% certain if that would be the case.
And the reason why I'm asking is because I want to make sure that it's, equitable among every student there. Not necessarily, and please don't discredit like what I'm saying that, I don't think that like anybody did anything on purpose, but I think we need a wide range of like children who have IEPs, students who, are nonverbal, students who excel, students who don't excel. So I'd like to have a little bit more demographical range of stuff because, for some students, it works. The system that is in place now, I think it may work. I'm pretty sure 95% of it doesn't. I think there's something that could also be talked about, and I think this is coming from a teacher-parent point of view, is that, and this, I'll be honest, this has happened to my own child. My own child was waiting months before her grades were put into her classes. I think there also has to be accountability with making sure no matter what policy we change, there still has to be accountability to make sure that grades are put in at a specific time, because that has a lot to do with you have a college, so to say, calling in to get transcripts and stuff, and you have a student who is normally a straight A student, GPA, 4.0 off the ranks, and you have maybe a teacher that doesn't put all of their test scores in or all of their assignments in. Does that lower their GPA? Especially if it goes on for a month. Yeah, it does.
We had talked about
And that ain't right.
of that, and I do believe that has to be articulated in the practices and the policies that we do formulate moving forward. And I think you are going back to what you had said about a wide variety of students. We, as an administrative group, are looking at the universal design for learning, and I think that's going to be a way that it's almost like prescriptive to every student that they are going to have the opportunity to demonstrate proficiency in multiple modalities, multiple ways. So I think as the next month or so, we're going to be presenting information to the board concerning our plans on how this is going to be implemented for our upcoming school year, and we're already laying the plans for that. So I really do believe that the model that we're looking for as far as our academic model will articulate and explore and address all students, not just the top performing or the lower ones, but collectively all groups of students.
I did want to say too, just to bring it back to Dr. Fike's original request, which was what is our policy right now and how is that being enforced, correct, Dr. Fike? Because that was of concern to the students as well, which we didn't really hear with that report, what the policy actually is right now and how grades are, how that works. So if we could bring that back around maybe.
There's varying models because there's the 85-15.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah,
so
that's where the problem, and that's where we want to make sure that we are fully articulating correctly, because you are correct. It is different depending upon individuals, teachers, and also individual buildings. So there has to be a consistency. At one point in time in this district, there was a consistency, what that exactly meant. Okay, but I think somehow or another that is lost, and we need to reestablish what exactly that is going to look like. What are significant grades going to be more beneficial or more impactful than just, I don't want to say the fluff, but like the easy homework assignments and whatnot, and that is what we're looking at fully articulating in the plan coming up. Yes, you are exactly right.
So, Mr. Masher, you're saying there's no policy for this?
Well,
there's one now, Jason.
Yeah.
There's one now. When?
There's a policy, but it's how you get to that policy that's not in that policy. No, it says 90 to 100 you're talking about and so forth, but that's all there is. You're going to have to redo that whole thing. There is a policy, but it's bare bones, and it's not applying to everybody in a fair way. it's going to have to change.
Even within that, Mr. Polakowski, I could have 85% of my grades, but they could be paper and pencil, and they might not truly match what the needs of everyone in that room would be versus myself personally. I probably do better on a manual, hands-on type of demonstration. Right now, I think we get locked into sometimes just paper pencil, but there are different modalities, other ways that we could demonstrate a student's competence, either by a manual presentation, a verbal presentation, a project, something like that. So I think those are the policies and practices that we have to fully articulate.
I'm going back to what the original complaint was. I don't think the original complaint was how are we testing people. It was how a teacher is weighting grades and the grading scale that one teacher is using versus a grading scale that another teacher is using. That was the whole gist of the argument. It was not how do we get there. Like, it wasn't that we don't want tested on paper and pencil. I never heard that or read that.
It must have evolved from that meeting, Michelle.
So, I mean, but that's not focusing in on what the concerns were then, right? Because
we're assuming that include that, though. I'm assuming they're going to include those concerns. I am, Michelle. If it's a process that they're working. The kids, in the letter that I received, it said they accept the fact that 90 to 100 is an A, 80 and so forth, but it's how they get to that grade. And every teacher has a different way of getting to it.
Right, it's the consistency.
And they're totally inconsistent.
Yeah, it's all those, there is a grading scale.
Yeah.
It's how that, I can get a 90%, but from one teacher, but another teacher I might get
Like
that
an 82 or something.
in a different manner. So that there is an inconsistency within that.
So in general, in life, no matter where you are, whether you're in elementary school or you're first or fourth year of college, you're going to have teachers that are a little tougher, and you're going to have teachers that are a little easier. So what are we saying? Are we saying now that, I just want to understand, because I didn't understand anything you read, to be honest. If we're saying that we want everything to be equal, then we're saying if a history teacher is a history teacher, we're going to give the same exact information to both classrooms, and we're going to test both classrooms on the same exact test. That's the only way to kind of fix this problem, because you're always going to have, I mean, let's face it, you all did it in college. You saw, oh, so-and-so says this person's easier than this person, so you take the easier person. Isn't that's how there gets to be inconsistencies. Like, if we have a grading scale and it's 90 to 100 is an A, and so on and so forth, isn't that each teacher should be following that scale, but
Williams.
Whether they're harder or easier is...
My understanding is that at some point in the history of Southmoreland, teachers were told that 85% of the grade should be what the tests and everything else.
I believe
so. I think that the issue is some teachers still abide by that 85% is only your tests. That's 85% of your final grade for the class. Some teachers don't. I think that is the crux of the problem. So you might have two history teachers that, and we can't tell teachers how to teach or what to teach, so I'm totally against that. They know what they're doing. But if they're using if one history teacher is using 85%, you fail a test and then you're done for the year. And the other one's saying, no, 85% is just homework and making up stuff. And I think that's the crux of the problem.
And
that's my impression from the information.
Graded on multimedia projects, just different ways to assess learning rather than just the paper pencil test where if it's 85% for one person and not for the other, there is an inconsistency there.
Yes.
So if I'm a student who has to take this teacher because my schedule allows it, but I'm going to be better at the multimedia stuff, that's unfair.
And I think what I'm assuming what students and parents are asking is that please don't make your score so dependent on taking a test, because some kids do not take tests well.
Yes.
And if you're going to do that, it better be consistent between everybody. Everybody must have that same standard.
Yes, and on the flip side of that, we don't want to lose the rigor in the courses, because there has been past practice where a lot of homework might have counted for a lot more of the grade. We still are held accountable for having rigor within our classes and meeting the standards that are presented to us. So that's the fine point. We just want to clearly define moving forward what that is going to be.
There's another issue at stake here, and that is, and to be honest, I don't know, excuse me, if all teachers do that, or just some teachers do that, or maybe some teachers just haven't been told necessarily not to do that, but like, say they have, in the next 2 weeks, they have a test coming up, somewhere along the lines, and believe me, I don't understand the schematics of it, but they're putting in zeros. It's like, say they have this big project or something, everybody gets a 0. And so when overall it's looking at their grade, like here's the 0 over here that they never even had a chance to take the test or even know what's on that particular test, but they already have a 0. So that's, for one, lowering their GPA or lowering their grade in that class. Like, and I guess this has to do with like the Google Classroom Forum. It's how, this is something that like I've talked with parents with, is that it seems like it's lowering their grade when they've never even taken that test yet.
That could be a coding issue when you're setting up the grade books in CSIU, because there is multiple ways that is impacted. Some of them put that 0 in as a placeholder for a test, but that should not actually, in my opinion, that should not be calculated in on the average, because that individual did not have that opportunity to take that. Once that test is taken, then that should calculate in on the average. But some are being used as a placeholder, and that is in the setup in CSIU. It's something that you have to go in and you have to disallow that to be averaged in.
So is part of this plan going to include training for all of the teachers on how to properly enter that and calculate averages then?
We've already started on working on a full-fledged, that's part of the 3-year plan that we will be presenting, that is also going to include the academic end of things.
And then one more thing to add, and I think, I'll be honest, when it comes to high school, sometimes when it comes to grading and physical education, it's like cutthroat. I mean, you forget your clothes one day, 50%, you're cut a 50% grade, and you have to make that up in SSP. I'm sorry, what the hell is that? Like, you miss dressing out for one day. If I went to work, I went to work, I had 2 different shoes on. Do I get cut for half the day because I have 2 different shoes on? I don't have the necessary correct work shoes on because I accidentally left those at home. You know, got personal things going on. I mean, who assigned 50% of your grade to whether you dressed out or not? Not necessarily whether you dressed out or not on a consistent level. One time. Someone has 100% grade in their class. One time they forget their clothing, boom, they're down to a 50% and have to make 50% of that grade up in an SSP by going to gym. I'd like to know that. That is asinine.
Consistency practices. That all needs to be addressed.
And I know, and I get angry with that because I know that's been brought up eons before I was ever even on this board. So here's another thing, and I can talk all night about this. Okay, say students who are athletes are leaving school early. Say they leave at 1:30, but they don't have their final period, which is PE, until after they're already gone. Why do they have to make up PE if they're going to a sporting event? I mean, I think that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like,
doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if you're an athlete, you're going to an actual athletic event. Mind you, we have already paid to play. Okay? So let's add that in. And you go and do physical work. Most likely more physical work than you're doing in a gym class. This is no discredit to any gym teacher whatsoever, but this is a team that you're organized with. So, you know, you're giving your all. So why are we deducting 5 points if you're not attending that gym class when you're going to an athletic event?
5 percentage points.
Yeah, 5 percentage points, going from 100 down to a 95. Say that happens 4 times a week.
Those concerns will be addressed, Mrs. Herrera.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all.
That is all I
Anything
have.
else? Business manager, transportation director information. I'm sorry. Yeah, do you have something for us? I'm sorry.
So I have no specific legal issues to bring to your attention tonight. I do want to very briefly walk you through the process for these 2 add-on items that were brought to your attention tonight. So those items were not included in the agenda and were not shown to the public within 24 hours. So to remain in compliance with the Sunshine Act, we did have to have a motion to have them added. We've been through that process, and now they are going to be added to the agenda under new business as items number 8 and items number 9. Tomorrow, there will be an amended agenda that is uploaded to the district website to reflect that these items were added, and the minutes will also reflect that these items were added to the agenda. For the sake of expediency, I will be reading the board action for item number 9, which is the e-services item. And I have nothing additional to present.
Thank you. Sorry, now, Mrs. Longo. Business manager, transportation director information.
First of all, I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to go to the PSBA conference last week. I can tell you that I attended many trainings that I kind of, whenever I looked at the schedule of the sessions, I kind of looked at the things that I felt that the district was currently lacking, and I went to some of those. Obviously, I wanted to attend the one that they had on the state budget. I attended one on access because that is a problem that we are having within the district. And I'm happy to report then, whenever I came back on Monday, Mr. Haichu had worked with the IU. We had a meeting with the teachers responsible for access. What I did was I went in first and I spoke with them, and I garnered some information, and in talking with some people at PSBA, I got an idea. What I did was I took the actual expenditures over a 5-year period in our special ed category, and then I also showed them, and I should have brought it this evening. In retrospect, I apologize. I'll have to send it to you all in an email. I did a graph, and I showed what our expenditures were for special ed, and then I showed what our subsidies were for special ed. I did that in a graph, and I also showed them that in paper, and I asked them for their help because I said currently we are leaving access monies on the table, and we really can't afford to do that. It's something that I believe will really help the district, and I'm very happy to say that I contacted the IU the following day to touch base with Kathy Roberts, and I said, how do you think it went? Did we make an impact? And she said she had already had that morning 4 teachers contact her and upload some information. Because I explained to them, you have to have all of the items inputted and every T crossed and everything taken care of in order to recoup $1 of your money. So, like I said, I was very happy about that. I can also tell you that I took an HR training while I was at PSBA. I also took some of the grant purchasing guidances, because obviously with ESSERS, we want to stay on top of that. And I actually did, Susan McCrone, who is actually the state's division person in charge of federal programs, I actually met with her after I made a point to go and introduce myself and talk some items over with her to make sure that we were indeed compliant. And like I said, very, very thankful that I was able to go. That's just a few of the things that I attended. Also, whenever we came back, I can tell you that we're still ongoing with our CSIU transition training. We've had some additional trainings this week in cleanup. We did cleanup in personnel as well as cleanup in payroll. And in Bus, I contacted them. They have the majority of our data. Mrs. Geyer is still working on a few other little tweaks, but hopefully within the next week and a half or so, they will have our initial routing done, and then we'll start with our training. So, it's moving forward, and I'm happy to report that. Are there any questions that anybody has?
Does the rise in gasoline prices affect our budget for transportation?
Yes, that's one of the things that we actually met as a consortium through the IU, and they're getting ready to put the fuel bids out for next year, and I'm going to be honest, we're very nervous about that. That's another thing that I was also in touch with this week with Keytex, because our amounts that we pay for electricity and gas, that's something that is negotiated as well. Obviously, they're looking at possibly doing like a 6-month type lock-in because of the fact that things are so unknown at this point in time.
What did we vote on then when we voted for a particular price when it came to gasoline and diesel for our transportation vehicles? What was that about?
That we would send a bid out. Because we have to have that approved since we're part of the consortium. To be a part of the consortium is they actually send the bid out to suppliers.
I would
do that for 6 months, Pam, the fuel?
Fuel?
Who makes that decision?
That does make sense. Actually, they didn't talk about that, but I can certainly bring that up because that's a very valid point. If we're doing that for electricity and gas, why not do it for gasoline and diesel? Because hopefully within the next 6 months, maybe the turmoil in the world will calm down a bit. Let's hope.
Hopefully it will, or go the other way. So, that's why I wondered who would make that decision, because it could go higher also.
It could, and that's actually something that all of the members of the consortium vote on.
Okay.
No, I just remember we voted for a certain amount of time of $2.65 or something for gas.
We lock into a price on fuel, I think.
Yeah.
On some level. I think I remember that.
Yeah, we do it every year.
That was last month.
We do it every year. Fuel bid.
I think that was a while back.
I feel like it was on a Zoom meeting.
There was a fuel bid, and that was actually for this year. And that was for the 21-22 school year, for this year that we voted on. The one that I'm referring to is actually for next year.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why this was later was because it wasn't done last year due to people not utilizing... Having excess fuel, yes.
Thank you.
CWCTC report.
Yes, I can report that they have been continuing their road shows. They've gone to almost all of the districts, I believe. I was told that we had a good amount of students apply to CWCTC for next school year, above what we typically have. I wasn't given the exact number. I'm sure Mr. Masha or someone can report on that next month when it's official. They have been now focusing on elementary schools. So they hosted an elementary evening on the 22nd of February, and they had over 140 elementary students and their parents come to CWCTC to see what they do there. They participated in some activities. They also, on March 9th, had a career fair for the CWCTC students. They had over 40 employers on site for the students to talk to, opportunities for them to meet with the students one-on-one. So they're having a really successful couple months here.
That's fantastic.
Is that on? WIU report.
Yes, our meeting was held on February 22nd. We start our committee meetings at 5:45. We had an executive session at 6:30. A very major concern at the IU right now is their business manager is leaving. And they just feel that that's the most important position up there in terms of responsibility for everything. They interviewed 5 candidates, took it down to 3, and then took it down to 2. So they were still dealing with that. I'll find out next time I go who they've chosen. They talked about Clairview School, and if you don't know what that is, it's a special school that's located near the IU for students with disabilities. The IU does not own it. They're not allowed to own it. So the people who own it put it up for sale. So the executive director was very good, and he said that if you sell it, you have to put in the policy that you can't close it. And the seller said, we will do that, so that the kids have a guaranteed place to be, because if you can imagine relocating Clairview, that would be devastating. It does require a $400,000 improvement in the parking lot, but the IU can't pay for that because they don't own the building, but I guess they're negotiating to get that done. They had $156,000 left over that they're going to put to their fund balance this year. They discussed the fact that the IU needs a marketing plan for IU services to all districts. And that's pretty comprehensive because several things are happening, one of which is we don't know whether or not the people who work here actually know what they have to offer. And they are pointing to the success of the VOTEC Roadshow, and we talked about doing that. On April 26th, and I mentioned this before, we're having a board retreat and our regular meeting. It starts at noon and it goes till evening. They're going to talk about marketing plan strategies and other things. They did revise their health and safety plan, and I think you'll find this very interesting. Any child who's from age 6 to 21, masks are optional. But children who are 3 to 5 in early intervention, there are 11 per class, they will require them to wear a mask. Some children will need to be exempted. Some of those children have very specific problems, but you would think it'd be the other way around, but it's not. The older kids don't have to do that. The 2022-23 IU general operating budget is $6,806,355. And we reviewed the administrative regulations plan, that people are developing that tells you how to implement your policy for the board. What's that?
PSBA liaison report.
So Pennsylvania educators, school administrators, and state officials testified during a House Education Committee hearing on teacher shortages. Collectively, they emphasized that a thinning workforce has not occurred suddenly, but the issue has developed over the last decade or so and has been exacerbated by the pandemic. Pennsylvania saw a 66% drop in college undergraduates choosing education as a major since 2010. In-state teaching certificates fell by 66% too, and between 2009 and 2020, out-of-state certificates fell 58%. So teacher colleges are not pumping out the candidates that they were 10 years ago, 12 years ago. The good news is retirees can return to serve as day-to-day subs and not affect their PSERs. So all those retired teachers out there, come on back.
Bring it on back.
Yeah, we need you.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have, yep.
Thank you. PSBA legislative report. Yeah, I think that's COLA.
I gave my report at the last meeting. We only have meetings once every other month, so we had a meeting in February, and I gave my report in February.
So committee reports, buildings, grounds, and safety. I think the next meeting's
Yeah, this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the middle school library. That's Nicole and Tony, and any other board members that want to come and talk about building and grounds. And I'm sure Mr. Bajin will give us updates on the SBC roof and things that are going to happen in the summer. So,
Do you think we should get like school security involved in that too?
They are part of it.
Yeah, they're going to be here. I invited Mr. Kiefer,
Okay, cool.
Mr. Bajam, Mr. Price, and any board member who wants to attend.
Finance, district operations, and transportations. We did have a meeting. Just basically to discuss a couple things such as the paving issues and the financial situation of that. And Mrs. Mondock has showed us some ways that that can be achieved. We're just going to wait for those bids to come in and see exactly where they are. And I think you're still moving forward on preparing a budget to present to us.
Yes.
We're just waiting on Bus Boss too.
Yes.
That's all I have. If anybody has anything else from that meeting.
Cell phones.
Oh, and the cell phones were a result of that meeting. We did turn off 11 cell phones that were not being used, 12 now. And we had some that had very minimal usage to the point that they were used 0. So it was just an expense to the district that we didn't need.
We've mostly dealt with expenses because you didn't have the information yet on the state subsidies and stuff. And that's going to be our next meeting.
Correct.
Pull that up with what we've already in terms of potential expenses.
I just want to say too that that presentation was put together very well. It was easy for us to understand and follow. Very nice format. Personnel policy and academics.
Yep, we met, and from the last board meeting, you could see that we went over what felt like hundreds of policies, and they were updated. They are currently under their posting for 30 days, I believe. And as soon as that's up, we will vote on them to add them to our actual policies. After that, we are almost completely caught up with policies, which hasn't happened in what I've been told a very, very, very long time. So we are moving on to, we'll keep doing that as they come, because every year you get new updates that you have to do, but at least now we're going to be able to just do this year's update rather than 2015 and 16, 18's update. So we're working there. Yes?
They will be coming. We get our updates quarterly, so it's going to be a lot more easily to manage those at the quarterly basis versus a long-term catch-up.
Is that all you have, Mrs. Smith?
Yep.
Thank you. Non-academic, athletic, and extracurricular.
Sorry, I just put a Snickers in my mouth. So we just had our interview with Jim Bukowski for our head coach, which we just hired last board meeting. And we are looking to have, Mr. Bourne's going to be getting back with us on the exact date that he's available to have our second committee meeting. We're looking to do that either after, I don't know if we said after or before spring break. But I'm thinking could be after, because with, all the state championships that are going on, and then we'll get a little bit more of an update from there.
You just make sure Peggy has that date so we can add it to an advertisement. Okay, students report.
I want to start out with saying congratulations to the February Scotty Scholar, El Polakowski, and congratulations also to February Spirit of Southmoreland student, Isaac Trout. And then there's an attached list of graduates for 2022. On Saturday, February 5th, Eric Barber represented Southmoreland at the PMEA Honors Jazz Festival held at Seton Hill University. Eric was the bass trombonist in the top ensemble. On Friday, February 25th, Eric traveled to Du Bois School District as a member of the PMEA Region 1 Orchestra. He advanced by audition and earned the top seat in the trombone section. The concert was at 7 p.m. at Du Bois Middle School Auditorium. 5 members of the senior high band advanced by audition to perform the PMEA Region Band held March 11th through the 12th, 2022 at Mount Lebanon High School. Congratulations to Taylor Black, junior tenor saxophone, Nolan Blaze, sophomore baritone saxophone, Christopher Headley, sophomore French horn, Ethan Bird, junior trumpet, and Eric Barber, senior trombone. We are excited to announce that 2 students advanced by rigorous audition to the top state level ensembles. Congratulations to Eric Barber, who will be performing in the all-state orchestra. Eric's audition ranked him among the top 2 seats in the trombone section across the state. We are also so proud of sophomore Christopher Headley, who will be a member of the concert band French horn section. Both of these students will travel to the Poconos to perform at the All-State Festival held on April 7th through the 9th, 2022 at the Kalahari Resort and Conference Center. This is a major accomplishment for both students and honor to represent Southmoreland at the state level. The musical is diligently preparing for the 2022 production of Anything Goes, held March 31st through April 3rd, 2022. Tickets will be on sale soon. I think they actually are on sale already. The cast and orchestra have been busy rehearsing with Mr. Conway, Mrs. Gore, and Miss Hansberry. Mr. Ansel had been busy constructing the set, while Mrs. Conway is working with the production crew to prepare costume, props, and set pieces. The dance floor is being laid in an effort to raise funds. The musical boosters are planning many fundraisers, including a carnation sale for Valentine's Day, a Roaring 20s dance, and dining events at Applebee's, Wishes, and Chick-fil-A. All information can be located at the musical website, southmorelandmusical.net. We hope you will save those dates as live theater returns to the SHS stage. Exciting things are starting to happen in the SHS greenhouse. Mr. Ansel's Intro to Biotechnology classes are beginning their Trout in the Classroom project. This involves partnering with the PA Fish Commission and Jacobs Creek Watershed Association to raise brook trout to be released in a local trout-approved stream. Mr. Ansel's students are also getting the greenhouse ready for their spring seedling sale. Thanks to a partnership with West Overton Museum, students will be planting heirloom variety vegetables along with popular annual flowers. All plants will be available for purchase at the Spring May Mart on Saturday, May 7th. Starting in the third marking period, senior students in Mr. Ansel's Life After High School classes are exploring career options for after graduation. Students are beginning their 40-hour job shadowing experience at various workplaces in and around the community. Students are exploring nursing, auto mechanics, computer sciences, teaching, and environmental sciences, to name a few. And the 2022 junior/senior prom is scheduled for May 14th, 2022 at the Edgewood Country Club. Tickets are $85 each. Prom tickets will go on sale April 4th through the 8th. No freshmen from this school or another school may attend the prom, and nobody 21 years old may attend the prom. And then I brought 2 copies of the 2021-2022 literary magazine, if anyone wants to view them. Dr. Brown and her creative writing classes are currently in the process of putting together the literary magazine for this school year to showcase student talents in writing, photography, and art. If any teachers or staff are interested in submitting work for our faculty/staff section, please contact Dr. Brown at the high school or through me. And the Southmoreland reading team is to compete virtually this year against their surrounding school districts. This competition is on March 28th. There is still time to sign up to compete for students who are interested in grades 9 through 12, and they can do so by contacting Dr. Brown. That's all I have.
Thank you. Nice, thank you for the report.
Michelle, can he be excused? He got school tomorrow.
He can be excused whenever he'd like to leave. Can you take us all with you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
He has school tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Does anyone want to?
Yes, I would like to see that. Yeah. Thank you.
And I can share it with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I can share it. If anybody else would like to.
I'll take one bite.
Listen, Chirica's in that bag. It's right in there.
Where's their snacks? Who brought up?
Thank you.
I told you, I don't know what to bring.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks. Okay, moving on to new business, appraisal agreement.
The board is asked to approve the commission of an appraisal from CM Regent, who will contract Kroll to do a full industrial appraisal at no cost to the district. The district has not had an appraisal done since 2011. The change in appraisal comes from discussions with Nate Savani at the Furio Mongiel and Associates, our insurance company.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second?
Discussion.
If I may, this is actually a change from the initial one that I had on there. The industrial appraisal company actually houses our asset report that we do, our depreciation schedules, those type things. I did contact them and let them know that we wouldn't be going with them this year for the cost that they had quoted us. We can say they were less than pleased, and they did make motion that even though we will have this done, that they're not going to truly accept that for the valuations. At some point in time, I need to look at that to see what else we can do regarding our assets. But I do give a heads up to Nate for reaching out to me, telling us that CM Region, who insures 350 districts throughout the state, does this for the majority of their clients. In fact, there are only 10 districts in the entire state that they cover that hadn't been having the free appraisal done each year, and we were one of those people. So I think it's a value-added service that we definitely need to take advantage of.
You can do a voice vote since there's no expenditure.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sale of property?
Board is asked to approve the sale of the property that is part of the Westmoreland County Tax Map number 47-10-00-0-137 and recorded at Deed Book Volume 2011, page 969, to Grace L. Fox for $100, contingent on Ms. Fox paying all legal costs associated with the transfer of ownership.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
That's contingent on her paying our legal fees and hers?
Yes. So just to provide some context for people watching, this is something that was discussed during a prior executive session. This is a thin strip of land that is less than a fifth of an acre that cuts through the property of Mrs. Fox. It runs under her attached garage and her detached garage, and she's looking to acquire it and consolidate that parcel with her primary residence. Should the board vote to approve this action, they'll be paid $100, and the parcel in question will be put back on the tax rolls. And Mrs. Smith, to address your question, they would have to pay all legal costs associated with this transfer. That would include the filing of the petition with the court to authorize the transfer, because there is a cost associated with filing that petition. Under the school code, whenever a school sells real estate, it needs to publish notice of that sale for 3 consecutive weeks. So they will need to pay the newspaper advertisement costs for those 3 weeks, and they will need to pay all court costs associated with appearing, presenting the petition to the judge, and approving the sale. So long as Mrs. Fox is willing to go along with that, this would authorize me to go through the legal process to finalize the sale.
So this is no cost to the district at all?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frund?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Concrete repair paving project?
Board is asked to approve an additional $1,500, which HF Lens is requesting to complete the work related to the concrete repairs, as they do not believe it is related to the actual paving repairs.
I need a motion.
So moved?
You need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
As we already agreed on a price with this person,
Yeah.
Yes.
we already have a contract.
I know that they looked into some things and there were some emails sent later this afternoon. I have to be honest, I didn't have time to look at those. Can one of you provide any more information on why the additional cost? Like, is this something that wasn't in the original proposal?
I reached out to Mr. Scheller today, and he said HF Lens will provide, because I asked him, I said, why an additional $1,500? And he said HF Lens will provide details, drawings, and specifications for the concrete repair scope of work. The drawings will typically include site plan indicating locations of repair work, details indicating the patching methods and material used for each locations, specifications documenting the patching materials and process. Their scope of work for concrete repairs was not approved by the board when we were initially hired. There were many options discussed regarding our scope of services for paving improvement project, tennis courts, and track resurfacing. Concrete repairs were not included in the scope of services approved at the time. It was not a primary concern when discussing the project, but the paving asphalt improvements were. So including the concrete repairs is just a part of becoming familiar with the site and taking advantage of the opportunity to incorporate the repairs into a paving project being bid at this time.
I thought, though, and maybe Mr. Polakowski remembers better, but when you all walked the district with Mr. Scheller, I thought that we talked about underneath the dumpsters needing to be a concrete pad versus the asphalt. Like, all of that should have been discussed back then. We haven't added anything to this as far as my recollection is since we originally talked to them. Mr. Scheller put that together. We haven't added concrete repairs.
No, they did walk the sidewalks and noted the repairs that needed done. So my opinion is I'm not sure if it says concrete repairs. So I'd imagine that's not the part under the dumpster. I could be wrong. I don't know. Charlie's not here to ask. So, and we're already taking care of the sidewalks with that other company. So
the Big Bear.
I'm voting no, or we can table it.
So I'd like more information from Mr. Scheller on this that maybe can be discussed at the committee level, because I'm not sure what we're even talking about repairing.
I believe it's the sidewalks that, I mean, Mr. Masha was there. We walked the sidewalks. They saw the trip hazards and other things like that. But if we go ahead and pay this $1,500 and they give us their, specifications for all the sidewalks, and then we already approved a company to come in and fix part of them. So, I mean, I think we need more discussion on this.
Agreed.
And we have a problem. We're putting out contracts, and everybody's coming back and saying, I want more. They said 81,000. Is this what we're going to do? We're just going to keep letting people come in and say,
well, I want to table this because I'm not even sure what this is. Right. When they say concrete repairs.
That, Michelle. We just can't keep saying, oh, I need more money, give me more money.
Right.
They have a responsibility to plan these contracts. That's why they hire people to write them. And so.
Well, I just want more information from Mr. Scheller as well, not just from HF Lens.
Can I make a motion to table?
Second that.
And can I share something else that
Yes.
Mark wrote in the initial email? He said, Pam, after we discussed the paving project last week, I spent some time with Charlie documenting where the concrete repairs are needed at ES/MS and HS sites. I've communicated the scope of work to HF Lens, and they informed me that their scope of work related to concrete repairs would be an additional service since it is not related to the actual paving repairs. To have them include this work in the services would be the $1,500. Would this be something you'd be interested in paying for, including in the paving project?
So did Mr. Basham have him walk the sidewalks again? Like,
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, so I have a motion and a second to table it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Donations in memory of Coach Frederick.
Board is asked to approve receipt of donations in the amount of $2,245 in the memory of Coach Frederick. The donations are to be assigned to the Southmoreland football program.
I need a motion.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frund?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Liza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Reorganization of the District Anti-Bullying Committee.
Board is asked to approve the reorganization of the District Anti-Bullying Committee comprised of teachers, staff, students, community members, and administrators.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Reorganization of the District Safety Committee.
Board is asked to approve the reorganization of the District Safety Committee.
I need a motion.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Michelle, is that still comprised of teachers, staff, students, community members, and administrators, like the anti-bullying committee? We have members of the public and the safety
I believe so. Is
involved in
that?
that.
Is this the same committee that did the health and safety plan? This is different.
This is different. This is like actual security, correct? Yeah.
Evaluation of safety.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? District calendar?
Board is asked to approve the attached district calendar.
Need a motion?
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
Sorry.
I was reading too.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know. I remember asking this question. I don't know if anybody answered it. Why do we start before Labor Day? Did I ask that before?
We still have to follow other calendars like the VOTEC, the CTC. And then we have to also be vigilant that the county fairs.
Right.
So
I remember, I mean, this is eons ago, but like I remember when I was a kid starting after Labor Day, you know?
the way we start, if you looked at the calendar, we ease in with a 3-day week. For the younger students, it's a lot easier to acclimate them in moving into 3 days.
Yeah.
And then the following week we have 4 weeks. So it's a smoother, easier acclimation back in. At least that's what we believe.
I think then you extend the school year in further.
Is that me?
And we woke up.
Further into June.
Well, now that we're all awake.
Stepped on that thing down there. Yeah, okay.
Is there any other discussion? Does this need to be a roll call?
We should roll call this one. Yeah.
Okay, no other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Liza?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear? Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Dr. Fike? Mr. Frund?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, and the first walk-on item, which was posting high school yearbook sponsor at a supplemental salary of $3,077. I need a motion.
Move.
I need a second.
Second.
discussion?
Will we make sure that we let them know, who's ever applying for this position, that nothing's been done? Will we be letting them know that?
I think they need to walk into that knowing that, yes.
Very much so. They have heated lists.
Any other discussion?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Can that stipend be split between more than one individual if the need arises?
Yes, I think if the need arises, it could be. So there would be co-chairs, and then it would be split as it is on this agenda, which was for, I think, $1,538.
That needs put into the posting.
I would not include that in the posting.
I'm sorry?
That does not need to be included
Okay.
in the posting. Will not.
The other thing too, and I don't know if this necessarily pertains to hiring an individual, but
What's anything? Look, it's when you move.
right? So can we also look at different companies? I think we've used the company that we've had do the yearbooks for a long, long time. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily my decision, but I think that would be something that's coming from a third party. I think we need to see if there's something maybe a little bit more cost effective for our students and our parents, see what's out there. I mean, there's so many companies now that...
Sure that we could ask the new sponsor if they would like to be exploring other options.
Yeah.
There's digital formats, there's a number of ways.
I don't know if you could do a digital format, but, and another thing, and this is where money has gotten tangled up. And this is maybe something you would say to the new hire for this position, but I think instead of going through a third party to sell or to send our money to the district, whoever buys a yearbook, something needs to be set up within the district under a particular fund, a yearbook fund, through our business management office.
Can we do that? Being that it's actually really not something under the district, it's an activity fund? She was
Okay. Even if it could get put under, just because I would like, me personally, I don't know about anyone else, but I would like to see a little bit of making sure that these parents who are sending in their money are getting what they're paid for, or their money's going to where it should be going, and not, because nobody knows where that money has gone. You know what I mean? So we need to make sure that we have some accountability.
Well, what I'm actually planning, okay, let me try not to feedback. What I'm actually planning on doing, actually, funny that you were asking this, because as you were talking, right before you were talking, I was thinking I need to email all of the secretaries that are in charge of the activity accounts that not only do I want to see their bank statements and their outstanding checks for the month, I also want to see their activity records each month. And then I thought what we could do is we could upload them to Word docs so that you all could see them, so that you know where that's going.
And I do think that's appropriate because under policy 618 that governs the student activities fund, it does allow for some measure of oversight. And so that is an acceptable way of addressing the issue.
And I think that would give comfort to all involved, that that the money that is coming in is actually being spent for its intended purpose.
Now, is there something that can be set up to where we're not going through a third party to, like the parents and students aren't going through a third party to get the money to the district to account for a yearbook? I think that's just like it's an extra step that isn't necessary.
So so instead of sending the money to the district, you're sending it right to Harf Jones?
Well, then you have the yearbook site. It's
I think they just help provide online payments that way.
right, but I mean, what's the point of that? Because they couldn't provide me of where that money was going. So if you have Cindy Sue's mom writing out a check to Southmoreland Activity Fund, AKA Yearbook Fund, to me, that looks a lot better, or knowing that that's going into that particular account. You know what I mean?
I guess the question is too, is that yearbook company charging us a fee to process those payments? Are we losing money by utilizing this online third-party payment system? If we are, that's just further reducing the amount of money that's actually going toward the yearbook. So if we can just accept checks or, payment from the students directly, then maybe we wouldn't be losing that processing fee. Because I think everybody charges to process credit cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we could look at it. I'm not sure exactly, as far as our oversight goes, how far we can, and I'll have to do some research, how far we can actually dictate what they do.
Right, sure. I just want to make sure that we're not in the same position ever again.
Oh, agreed. Once is bad enough.
Yeah.
Get it cleaned up, fixed up, and not worry about it again.
I think the other thing is, Mr. Mesha mentioned that there were yearbooks left from last year. So we shouldn't be ordering yearbooks that aren't ordered. So if we have 300 students wanting yearbooks, we shouldn't order 380, because the chances of you selling a yearbook are pretty slim. I don't think there's you either want one or you don't.
5 to 10, possibly, but nothing else. Yeah, no more than that.
Is there a magic number of yearbooks that we have to sell before they'll publish it?
I don't know.
That's possible.
The boxes that are at the high school are already pre-sold. They have student names on the yearbooks.
Oh, those all have names? They just haven't been picked up?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you meant that they were not sold. Okay. So is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Frond.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
I just want to note that Mrs. Smith has left the meeting at about 9 o'clock.
Moving on to item 9, the board is asked to accept a proposal from Armstrong for e-services, including dark fiber and dedicated internet access for the next fiscal year from July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. The rates are $690 a month for fiber internet, $500 for NRC installation, $625 a month for dark fiber between buildings at the high school primary center, $625 a month for dark fiber between buildings at the high school Scottsdale complex. And this acceptance would be contingent on the district being eligible for and entitled to a discount of approximately 80% based on the rates I provided.
Like 80% comes off the rates you provided, or that's already an 80% discount?
The 80% discount has not been applied yet, or at least that's my understanding. So we did receive an email from John Puskar, who summarized the situation for us. And in that email, he mentioned that it is worth noting that all costs/prices listed are pre-discount. We will recoup approximately 80% of those costs back through E-rate. So that's the representation that was made in this email.
What's E-rate? Sorry, I'm
not familiar with E-rate.
Okay, all right, so I didn't miss anything. Okay, I was like, okay.
And it should also be noted in this email, Mr. Puskar, and I'm probably butchering his name and I apologize for that. He mentions that we are already receiving the dark fiber internet services at the rate of $625 a month. So you're already receiving those services, you're already paying for them for this school year. This is essentially locking you in at the same rate for the next fiscal year for the dark fiber services, whatever those are. That's outside of my wheelhouse as well.
Okay. So
But there's services the district's already receiving and paying for at that rate.
So I am curious, why would we have a dark fiber one? I mean, and believe me, I know nothing about this, but like, why would we have a dark fiber one for, say, the elementary and middle school when they're connected? I understand the high school to the primary because they're not connected, but the middle school to the elementary is a connected building. It's all one building. Why would we have dark fiber?
I think it's reference to the Scottsdale campus collectively. Because we're attached, it'd be the elementary and middle school.
Mr. Smithola, can you share that in real terms?
Oh, for all buildings. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, see, I don't know what I'm talking about, so sorry.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. O'Rear?
Sure, why not? Yes.
I don't have a motion and a second.
Need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So moved.
That was, I need a second. Now discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frond?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizzo?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Personnel, high school yearbook sponsor. I need a motion to table this.
So moved. Second.
Second.
One of us will do some.
Sure, whatever, whoever you put down.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Administrative assistant job descriptions.
Board is asked to approve the job descriptions for the administrative assistants.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frond?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizzo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Elementary principal job descriptions.
Board is asked to approve the job description for the position of elementary school principal.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Is there money involved?
The solicitor went through the agenda with Mr. Masha and put where there needs to be a roll call vote and where I can do a voice vote.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frond?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizzo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Director of Special Education job description.
Board is asked to approve the job description for the position of Director of Special Education.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Frond?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizzo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Creation of 12-month food service director position.
Board is asked to approve the creation of the 12-month food service director position at a salary of $53,000. This position is part of the Act 93 agreement.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I honestly thought this was 12 months. No?
It was 10.
It was 10.
Okay. And it was brought to our attention that it probably should be 12 months, correct?
Yes.
Because of what's all entailed. Okay. All right, I had that backwards.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Frond?
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer?
Yes.
Mr. Lizzo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Food service director job description.
Board is asked to approve the attached job description for the food service director.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Food Service Director?
Board is asked to approve Zach Malavite as the Food Service Director at a salary of $53,000 prorated for the remainder of the fiscal year. The Board authorizes the starting date to commence on May 2nd, 2022.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? There's some overlap here, just so everybody's aware. We didn't feel that it was appropriate for him to come into that position without some overlap with Mrs. Capone, because nobody else here would really be able to, there's no other administrator that's able to show him what's going on here.
That's where the prorated amount's going to exist.
Great.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
High school math interventionist?
Board is asked to approve Allie Grimm as a high school math interventionist at step B1 and a salary of $43,861 prorated for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year.
I need a motion.
So move.
Need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Remove from the table middle school boys assistant soccer coach.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That was tabled at the, Mr. Masha didn't have a chance to read, but it was tabled at the February 17th meeting. Middle school boys assistant soccer coach.
Board is asked to approve Anthony Lizza II as the middle school boys assistant soccer coach at a supplemental salary of $2,553 for the 2022-2023 school year. Updated clearances are on file with the administration.
Need a motion?
So moved?
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lizza.
I abstain. It's my son.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 pass, 1 absent.
Retirement of custodial employee Wilma Myers.
Board is asked to accept the retirement of custodian employee Wilma Myers effective June 2nd, 2022, and I wish her the best of luck in her retirement.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Varsity boys assistant soccer coach.
Board is asked to approve Chris Pollard as varsity boys assistant soccer coach at a supplemental salary of $3,753 for the 2022-2023 school year.
I need a motion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Dr. Fike.
Yes.
Mr. Friend.
Yes.
Mrs. Geyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lizza.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
I need a motion for a 3-minute recess to allow anybody to call in. That number again is 724-640-2609. I
need a motion?
So moved, sorry.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Doctor? Okay, I need a motion to go back into session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Before we go to public comment, Dr. Fike had something she wanted to say.
I just wanted to share some information that I think will be of importance to the board. The panels who presented this information were a former senator, a former superintendent, and a person from PSBA. Basically, they're saying that at present, public education is very problematic in Pennsylvania, across the state. Some of the statistics are PSSA third grade scores from English ELA fell to 58%, and they fell to 47% in math. Eighth grade is unbelievable. They dropped to 52% in English and 22% in math. That means 8 out of 10 kids are not proficient in math. That's bad. But what they did say that the brick and mortar schools did the best. None of the cyber schools did any good. They're all underperformers. And the conclusion of these people is that the cyber schools simply are not working to provide our kids with an adequate education. You have to help me with this, Vince. Is there something called PIMS or PENS?
PIMS. That's our data.
PIMS, P-I-M-S. Did you know that there are over 300 different reports that go to PIMS?
Oh, it's crazy.
And nobody knows what happens to the data when it gets there. But somebody figured it out. Public school regulations are equal in quantity to the regulations for the nuclear industry. That's how many they are. And apparently this is a real problem because the time involved in this is really a devastating thing. They also said something that the vast majority of all cyber kids who are called special ed are speech and language impaired, and they're getting about 1 hour of service a week for that incredible amount of money. You need to know that. They did say that he talked about distressed schools. They talked about distressed schools. There are 7 now that in the state that are in receivership, but there are 14 more that are on the watch list. So that's 21 of them. They said that in order for the state to meet our needs in education, they're going to have to give us $4 billion more money. They said that test scores are correlating very heavily with family income. That's kind of a sad thing to hear. But they told us something very interesting, and I think you'll enjoy this. Cyber school started 25 years ago by a guy named Nick Trombetta. I think he's in jail now. Anyhow, he was in the Midland School District, and they were bankrupt. They couldn't support their high school, so they put it out for bid. And the only bid there was from Steubenville, Ohio. So Midland didn't want to bus their kids from Midland to Steubenville, Ohio. So Nick Trombetta started the first cyber school. He is now, he was removed for all kinds of, he was buying airplanes and stuff like that. He made a ton of money. He made a ton of money. But it was not legal. It was not legal. But from the very beginning, 25 years ago, cyber schools have had a very rocky start. And I don't know if you guys were, I don't know if any of you were on the board when John Halfhill did the research, and he showed statistically that the cyber schools were failing across the board. That was way back when. But they said one other thing. They said there's $6.5 billion in recovery money floating around Pennsylvania that hasn't been spent. $6.5 billion that hasn't been spent. And also there is a lawsuit in Pennsylvania that is regarding, they want funding, more funding for the schools that have a high poverty level, and it's now actively in court. It's been floating around for a number of years, but they're finally going to hear this case. But I would assume we would qualify for something like that because we have a high poverty rate in Southmoreland.
I don't think we do qualify for that. There were some districts in our area, and we were not one of them.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Like there was something that was done with that, and we're not included in that. I think
we were considered a high poverty school.
I think Jeanette, I think Greensburg, Salem might have been.
Brownsville.
Menneson. In Westmoreland County, I think those were the 3, but
that's now.
But it might be wrong.
So they're hoping to get fair funding. But anyhow, those were just a few things that I thought you would be interested in hearing.
Thank you. Did we have any citizens' comments? Okay. Mr. Kiefer,
Yes.
we're ready whenever you are.
Tell me when to start.
You can go ahead.
There's quite a delay here.
You can start.
I'm ready.
You can start.
Okay. I'd just like to start with a little political disclaimer because you get accused of that on the school boards, but Trump said the vaccinations were the greatest achievement of our times. And so I'm not aligning with that, of course, although he's aligning with China and Russia and the rest of the global pharma control of our governments. But this is about data versus a narrative. And now we're being told that there's another virus wave coming this fall. This spring. And last month you voted on the law that Southmoreland COVID-19, the policy, the COVID-19 guidelines, and it's a serious policy vote. And you've had time to learn it inside and out, the government agency narrative, and supposedly by now the counter narrative to that. I continue to demand a proper committee functioning and positive board discussion debate to dispel the impression that you're not versed on this policy. To date, neither has taken place, and this should outrage students and adults. Continued avoidance is evidence to me that no board member is confident to stand behind his own policy. I'll come back to that policy in just a moment, but here's another example of your unconscious following of authority. On your website, and I've pointed this out several years now, on your website homepage, it says concerning kindergarten registration, bring immunizations record, birth certificate, etc. It should read, forms will be available for conscientious objectors as you can show, or you can show your papers, but it is your legal right to not be vaccinated. Resources will be available to assist parents in making an informed choice. Now, for only the parents wishing, a questionnaire could be filled out to ascertain the level of informed consent the parents made. The common response would be a pediatrician was consulted. But remember, it's the parent that legally gives the consent to the doctor, not the doctor. So imagine if we opened these doors of information. On your COVID-19, that you updated the flow chart. I'm going to have to abbreviate here. You know what it reads, but you're de facto making a vaccination and masking for students to play the game and not be a second-rate student. So I have a couple questions on that. What's the risk benefit? And if you've had the COVID variant before, and let's see. There are big names calling for policies, a crime. These policies like yours, a crime against humanity. I can show my work, and I'm asking you to show your work or pass on voting such an important policy. If you can't point to the detractors of the Southmoreland policy, then just be quiet or pass on the vote, as I should say. I can't hear you anymore, so I guess I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer. I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Need a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I just wanted to, are we done? We're off. Thank you.